Ayo, Shalom.
Pour the wine and get the stress up off my mind. I'm just sitting back, press rewind. Block the news. Sent her a text, no reply. So tell my boys I love them. Yeah, some men committed suicide. But God's word got me looking for a paradise. This is hell, and life's a gamble. And yeah, we roll a pair of dice. Yeah, no tears. Yeah, I let them fall too many times. Real men who were kings. Yeah, could feel what's wrong with our kind. Yeah, and I'm trapped in a bind. Transgressions catching up from behind.
Real nigga roll call. I got ox across the globe, y'all. Doing what I'm supposed to.
See, I'm just doing fine. I'ma sip this glass of wine. Yeah, lay back and recline. This is Jericho live. Don't judge me, yeah, they love you on one condition. If you form and ain't against them, well, I ain't formed. Been on my mission since my dream, like 2010-ish. I'm about to cream just for the fences. I got the basics, mama taught me vision. So when I fly, I'ma glide on these critters. I want the Holy Land, the dishing inches. Something they ain't seen before. Spoke to the tree that glowed. So everything I know is let my people go. Red light, green light, hating gringos. Trying to keep me on my ass while I'ma eat, bro. I stay loyal to the truth while I'm an ego. And I'm sticking to the script cause that's my ego. Cause what I look like some kind of me-go. I got killers holding back until that sequel.
Real nigga roll call. I got ox across the globe, y'all. Doing what I'm supposed to. Get out your emotions.
See, I'm just doing fine. I'ma sip this glass of wine. Yeah, lay back and recline. This is Jericho live. Don't judge me, I'm alright.
I gotta count the joy, ain't no taking it from me. Brothers by my side, can't be done by my lonely. Embracing everything what the Lord got for me. Through the battles and the trials, I'm just telling my story. I gotta count the joy, ain't no taking it from me. Brothers by my side, can't be done by my lonely. Embracing everything what the Lord got for me. Through the battles and the trials, I'm just telling my story. I'm just telling my story.
They say sometimes you gotta smile when you count the joy. Cause truthfully, nothing amounts to joy. We veterans on battlefields where we survived all of the plots employed. Live to arise in early morning and speak life to boys. The small things they say it really matter. Recovering from my letdowns and all the dreams that were shattered. Lost it all and got it back. That's what we call living. Meditate on this compassion. Give the offer of thanksgiving. It's brick by brick. It's what it's gonna take to build this building. And every effort's present when we represent for children. Cause we ain't have a God or an image or a script. We was young and hostile and we was riding with a grip. My pops told me it's a price to pay. I counted joy, he saved my life today. No matter what been thrown my way, I'm always keeping faith to obtain this crown. We gotta run this race. So humbly, we approach the throne of grace.
I gotta count the joy, ain't no taking it from me. Brothers by my side, can't be done by my lonely. Embracing everything what the Lord got for me. Through the battles and the trials, I'm just telling my story. I gotta count the joy, ain't no taking it from me. Brothers by my side, can't be done by my lonely. Embracing everything what the Lord got for me. Through the battles and the trials, I'm just telling my story. I'm just telling my story. Where I'm from, niggas die before diplomas. This body being lent, we not the owners. Devil want your soul, but it's the Lord that's in control. Now I shine through the struggle, that's the light they can't hold. I turn my tears into trophies and these scars full of gold. He directed all my steps, no compass, just faith. But I'm hungry for the knowledge, all I do is scrape plates. And every L is tuition, I'm just learning to count the joy. Invest in my peace because this life be so heavy. It ain't built for the weak, I'm still climbing but I'm higher than my old views. You can't believe them lies and everything they told you. I eat the whole roll, I call it soul food. Gotta count the joy, you can't count the hurt. I die daily, a new man risen from the dirt. I put the Lord first, you better know your worth. Cause some spend their life, but they stay the same. These days I smell like a diamond. Gotta count the joy, ain't no taking it from me. Brothers by my side, can't be done by my lonely. Embracing everything what the Lord got for me. Through the battles and the trials, I'm just telling my story. Gotta count the joy, ain't no taking it from me. Brothers by my side, can't be done by my lonely. Embracing everything what the Lord got for me. Through the battles and the trials, I'm just telling my story. I'm just telling my story.
You facing the fire and you feeling the heat. Count it all joy, take a seat, the Most High is undefeated, my brethren. The scripture is the truth and not a myth. Trials ain't hard, my God, but it comes with a gift. The test of your faith, you gotta stand up and grow. Don't let the pressure take over, just let the spirit flow. It's an opportunity, not a setback. Understand? James 1 verse 2, that's the Father's command. Every tribulation's a setup for a praise. You unlocking new levels in these perilous days. The enemy brain struggle, but God bringing strength. Dear Lord, I pray that my soul that you keep. So when troubles get heavy, stand firm in your spot. It's refining you to gold. Now look what you got. Embrace the affliction. Keep your mind on the goal. Let patience have a perfect work. Watch God save your soul.
Turn my failures to lessons, losing ain't an option, waiting on my blessings. Turn my failures to lessons, losing ain't an option, waiting on my blessings. I'm crying out, can't hold it in, gotta stay the course, we supposed to win. Done seen it all, it's time to prosper, elevate, it's time to prosper. The world at your neck like a violin. Instruments of cruelty gon' be their end. Satan gon' knock, but don't let him in. We born in a battle that'll never cease. I believe, I believe, I believe. I believe, I believe, I believe. We ghetto dreaming projects full of broken hearts. Picking up the pieces, this is just a start. Somewhere there's a flower trying to bloom out the concrete. I left a trail full of dry petals, trying to spark the mind and not the barrel. If I can't smell on my light blush, things of the world don't entice us. If she loyal, God-fearing, then you wife her. We the chosen, you can't sign her. World for the meek, this is all us. Earth having labor pains, soon it's a due day. Yeah.
earth, having labor carry as soon as a new day.
That's a bad guy.
I keep on striving for a better way of life. The devil's disguising, the earth in turmoil and in strife. We are surviving, looking for the better days. Lord, protect our life, guide us closer to your light. He that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. I'm trying to run this race. I'm trying to finish in first place. And here, well done, my servant. Well done, my servant. Oh.
Rip me out my chains, cuz I don't wanna be here. Thankful to the Father, I got eyes so I can see clear. Taught us that the sickness we inherit is hereditary. Reputation could be passed down to make us legendary. Seems as if the strong could bear the burden, and we never weary. But the thoughts that cross my mind in real time is hella scary. When you die and meet your demise, they say you viraled in. But on the earth, there's no checking in when niggas spiraling. The therapy the music tend to give us with the slightest pin, or make the wind feel less destructive when we surviving it. I only enter into this music to remind you, with hopes and wishes that this light I'm vibing with finds you. And even when the shade is great, push through, motherfucker, and shine through. Cause we the hope and the elect. I'm talking times two. We the hope, we the elect. I'm talking times two. And when it's all said and done, it's only you in a dark place. They tried to eradicate the whole dog race. They took the earth by a hand and ripped the crown off their heads of the ones that own this land. And then they made a brand. They put cement over the bones and made businesses. And then they told us this was our home. And then they tried to replicate our religion and made it a clone. And then they told us we was wicked. But if we bowed to white Jesus, somehow we would receive forgiveness. Seeing the presence of our fathers on the top of all our wish lists. And even used shoes was wrapped and presented to us as gifted. We believed in the wooden cross. When we seen black stars on television, we stood in awe. Niggas that chop your legs down and ask how couldn't y'all? Anger misplaced for opportunity, then who wouldn't brawl? If it's all love, then why you niggas break your treaty? The hood ain't a place that's known to comfort, uplift the needy. But I got a shepherd in the valley and he leads me. When we get blessed, then it's true that we all eat. We come from the colleges and churches, some of us all street. Salvation, everything, my life is what it cost me. Warring against negative forces, get them off me. Standing on business, nigga, I'm on top of the ship. Battlefield uncertain, so I'm clutching the grip. I'm a warrior, never let my heart turn weak. Never let my pride triumph over the side of me that's meek. We the people of the creek, from the plains of the savannah. Passed down oral history, the sister of my grandma. Know that they witnessed the recollection and they can't stand you. We striving for a better day, more opportunities like better work and better pay. To live in liberty and know the Lord, not the devil's way. If you understand, rock to this, let the letter play. Cause the doors are open, so you know we seek a better way. Striving for a better life.
He that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. I'm trying to run this race. I'm trying to finish in first place. And here, well done, my servant. Well done, my servant. Oh.
Yes, sir. Shalom to everyone. Shalom. Who we got in the chat so far? Azar, Rose. Nope, Salak, Sister Rose. Sister Azar, Maya Ka'ala. Fun. Good brother Ganan Kowal. Our raw ones in the building. Shalom, sir. Our raw one, if you don't change your name up. Ugh. What else we got? Okay, there we go. All right. All of you see the title to the lesson, The Essentiality of Brotherhood, the root word of it being essence. Essence is basically what's fundamental and what's important. It is of what's necessity and what's needed. And most importantly, it cannot or should not be thought of being had without. If I said that the right way. To basically mean you should not go without it. It is expedient. Or the person is expedient. Again, shalom, shalom to those coming in. So again, the essentiality of brotherhood, the importance, the necessity, the expedience of brotherhood, i.e. being together. Togetherness, oneness, union, unity. We are all in need of one another. Kind of did a similar class a while back, but tonight I'm going to take a different angle of things and explain through the scriptures and comparisons about why we as humans, we have not just civilizations, we don't just have life here on earth. The Lord knew what he was doing since the very beginning when he made all of mankind. That goes for Israel and also non-Israel, everybody. So the importance of brotherhood. God created civilization and humanity to thrive, build, and live together when everything was made. The very inception of togetherness was emphasized with Eve's creation in Genesis chapter 2 and verse 18. I'm going to read that real quick before I continue. So Genesis chapter 2 and verse 18 says, "And the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him and help meet for him." Now, this is where in the very beginning, and the foundational understanding comes from, that we cannot rely on just ourselves only when it comes to living and thriving. We cannot just be alone to do everything. Thawada Aliyaz, Shalom Yashar. So with this being understood, this was what the Lord had put forth pertaining to what he had in mind for his creation in the book of Genesis. So again, the very inception of togetherness was emphasized with Eve's creation in Genesis 2 and 18. Loneliness was never a part of the Most High's plan, because contrary to popular belief, being alone and being solitude or being in solitude are two very different things. We all need alone time, and we all need alone time, i.e. solitude, which is the state of being alone, usually by choice, and it is for most people is needed to remain positive and to refresh oneself mentally and emotionally. That's what solitude is. But being alone, we all need to be alone at times and for periods of time. But being alone from the world, socialization, and people can be detrimental to your health for over extended periods of time. Sir Ganon in the building. Shalom, sir. Appreciate what you sent me earlier with the message. It kind of ties in with tonight. So I'm going to repeat that again because, I don't want there to be misunderstanding. There's a difference between being alone and being in solitude. Solitude is the state of being alone. It is usually by choice. It is for most people needed to remain positive and to be refreshed of oneself mentally and emotionally. It allows you to free yourself of being around people, feeling overstimulated. You need time by yourself, or you just at the present time do not feel like or being around people and do not like or want to be socializing, which is fine, which is understandable. And we all, at some point in our lives, we need it. But it is not meant to be done for over an extensive period of time where you go without being around people, being around humans, and more importantly, not having contact with any other forms of life, because you lose the abilities on how to socialize and be around people, communicate, talk, express feelings, so on and so forth. And that's why people to themselves, they tend to be the lone wolf type, or types tend to have underlying mental health problems, or per se, there's something off, odd, and strange about that particular person that separates them from the common folk of people. That's what you kind of see with people that are the lone wolf type. Of course, in this truth, we call them the individualites, which is what you're not supposed to be. Again, to emphasize the last point, but being alone from the world, socialization, and people could be detrimental to your health, again, over extended periods of time. To kind of stray off, when people are in lockup, and they're in what's called the hole, 3-4 months, all you get is food. You're completely away from everybody. It is a time period necessary and essential for self-reflection. And it is a time period for you, you're locked up, jail, or prison. You're alone by yourself for an extended period of time, however long. Now, that time alone, to stray off from that example, is good for periods of time. It is good that you are by yourself. It is good that you get time to yourself to meditate, to de-stress, to relax, to be at ease. But for an extended period of time, you lose parts of yourself that made you human, and more importantly, gave you the vitality of what it was like to be around other human beings. And within that destroys the minds of people, because when they come back around people after being away for so long, they don't know how to be around people, which is my point. Now, solitude, again, solitude is a state that can improve self-awareness, creativity, and productivity by providing a necessary mental reset and a chance to reflect, recharge, and reconnect with yourself without the constant stimulation of social interactions. And again, that's needed because you're not always going to be in the mood to want to be around people. You're not always going to want to be in the mood to talk to people, to socialize, because you need time to yourself. Some of us may be easily stimulated due to, sometimes it's not even kids, for sisters in the chat, those of you that are parents, especially the mothers, children overstimulation is a real thing for women. The constant having to check, what are you doing? Hey, don't do this, put that down. It does get to women at some point, and they mentally can be overburdened because they are constantly having to hover over the children for extended periods of time, which is mentally taxing and tiring to their nervous systems. Men, sometimes work can be an overload. You have to deal with people, talk to people. You got to put up with a lot of BS, maintain patience, refrain and hold back yourself, things of that nature. It's a lot. And at times, that's why you need the time alone to de-stress and relax. You need the solitude. There's nothing wrong with that. You need the time to be away from people. You don't want to hear conversation, or at times you don't want to hear conversation. At times you don't want to have a conversation. You want to keep it minimal. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. The issue and the problem is, depending on how long the period of solitude is, do not let that take away and deprive you of what makes you human. Because the only way you know yourself and would be able to have a definition of yourself is by someone else telling you. Proverbs 27 talks about letting another man praise you. It's not about what you see in the mirror. It's about what else someone else sees. Because the definitions and how you would define yourself is how you would define yourself, when that would probably be similar or entirely different if someone else was to say and do so, to speak about you and speak
what it is they think of you from their own behalf. And I said, we to the parents, God bless. Man, listen. Definitely. So with solitude being mentioned, togetherness and unity is so significant to God because it's essential to life itself. There is power in the numbers for the collection of resources, example ATC, protecting one another, and the power of shared purpose. To historically speak, defense against perpetrators, which is like, a pack of wild animals. You brothers, remember at Passover, we're talking about the raccoons. It wasn't just one brother. Brothers had to unite and come together to fight off wild animals. And solving problems through collaboration still applies in the new modern society we are now living in. Why? Because we have to collectively bring ourselves together about what it is we are going to do. When you have shared purpose and a shared goal with a group of like-minded individuals, you will reach it not just efficiently, but you will reach it much more faster because everybody's putting their mental application and energy towards the same goal and purpose that you're trying to accomplish and fulfill. With the increased motivation to succeed, a force to push for change, achieving common goals, problem solving, and the sense of unity and belonging, congruity has in the gravity what the Lord intended it to be for. And that would be the purpose of people uniting, being, and coming together. So what we have to understand is that as a nation of people, this is why it's even in the laws within the first 5 books about why we are supposed to congregate together. This is why we are supposed to gather ourselves the more daily. This is why we are supposed to be in unison, serving, loving, and honoring one God and no others before him. This is why that's important. So what we need to realize and understand is that how essential it is and how important it is that you are together and around people. The Lord does not take lightly that you would not want to be around people. Again, solitude is different from just being alone, because some people are lonely and feel lonely because they feel like they have nobody. Well, that's why you're supposed to make yourself available, try your best to be social, approach, speak, communicate, because that's what human life and human beings do, and that's what we are all here for. And again, we would only know more so to be able to define ourselves and speak to and on about ourselves from the lens and the perspective of other people. Now, there are many examples of this inside the scriptures. Many examples. Shalom, sis Makaya. There are many examples of this in the scriptures. I've titled this Co-Relationships in the Bible. It can be more than 2, but co-op, meaning 2 that are cooperating, fighting, uniting together for a common goal and purpose. I entitled this portion Co-Relationships in the Bible. The first main example are Moses and Aaron. Both are mentioned and spoken about within the book of Exodus. They are both Levites. They are blood brothers. They have the same father. They are descendants of Levi. To explain briefly, Moses was taken in as Pharaoh's son. He refused to be his son as he came of age and left and came back by the Lord's commission. That's what we read about in the book of Exodus chapter 3. Aaron was the co-leader and the spokesman to Moses, but Moses was the prophet and the lawgiver. Aaron and Moses had a relationship built on divine appointment and brotherhood. Their relationship was peculiar, though it was complementary. Aaron had the priestly role, while Moses was the prophetic lawgiver and leader of the nation. Now, when it comes to the word complement, not compliment, that which is for your to speak well on somebody or to speak good about somebody. Compliment with, it's spelled Comple instead of I, Plementary, complimentary. The word complimentary means something that completes or enhances another thing. It is forming a whole or creating a pleasing combination, something or someone that brings to perfection. So Moses and Aaron both complemented each other. In the book of Exodus chapter 4 and verse 12, this was Moses complaining before the Most High. He did say he wasn't of eloquent speech and he was not a good orator. It says, now therefore go, and I will be thy mouth and teach thee what thou shalt say. And he said, O my Lord, send, I pray thee, by the hand of whom thou wilt send. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, is not Aaron the Levite thy brother? I know that he can speak well, and also, behold, he cometh forth to meet thee, and when he seeth thee, he will be glad in his heart. Now, this was a case and example right here that we read about, where the Lord understood what Moses felt, sympathized with him, though he was angry, and sent him his brother, because he wasn't going to forsake or leave him if he just showed him a miracle about a burning bush that wasn't extinguished in the fire, which means you can believe that the Lord will deliver on his promise about what he will do. So these two being complementary, working hand in hand with the Exodus and the departure of the Israelite nation from Egypt, they worked hand in hand all the way up until Aaron's death in the book of Numbers, and then Moses in Deuteronomy. They worked together until the end. And of course, Moses commissioning Aaron as the first high priest, with his descendants coming and following after him. This is how their relationship worked together hand in hand, as they were, from this very chapter and onward up until their deaths, worked together to unite and to free and work with the nation of Israel. All right, so now to explain both and the differences, right? Both had a divine role. Moses was the primary leader and prophet chosen to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, and he received the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. Aaron was the spokesman for Moses, the first high priest, and a pillar of the Israelites' religious life. That is very important, because the one that's supposed to lead and have the office of sacrifices and also be the one to present the atonement for the nation of Israel was Aaron and his descendants. Now, this is interesting because we see this common throughout the scriptures. Moses was the younger brother, Aaron was the older brother. We're going to see how that's so similar within the next example. Take, for example, it's not always the oldest within the scriptures that the Lord is with or the Lord chooses, because it's not always about the literal number one child. Not that the firstborn, by inheritance rights, doesn't receive everything that's the father's, but within the Lord's ordinance, the Lord doesn't do as man does, because it's not always the number one that's chosen or to necessarily be for the role or inherit what the Lord intends for the one he chose to inherit. For example, Esau and Jacob. Esau is the older brother. Jacob is the younger brother. The Lord said to Rebekah, 2 nations are in thy womb. One people shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. The Lord does not always deal with the literal number one firstborn child, because he has his own set ordinance and decree about how he does things. Their relationship dynamic. Moses was the senior leader, but often hesitant and in need of Aaron's help. He also interceded for Aaron when he made mistakes. Aaron was a supportive ally and brother who met Moses in the wilderness. He took on the role of high priest after Moses' authority was established. Their key moments. Moses confronted Pharaoh. He received the law on Mount Sinai, and he interceded for Aaron after the golden calf incident in Exodus 32. For Aaron, it was fashioning the golden calf, making the Israelites worship it because Moses was away. He served as the high priest and led the Israelites in worship. Their character. Moses, you can say, was at times introverted, hesitant leader who ultimately fulfills his God-given mission, and at times very much, I'll say, gave in to his emotions because of how frustrated he was with the children of Israel. And that's something for us to mentally, emotionally, psychologically understand, because having to deal with the complaining, groaning people that have had the miracles of God performed before their very eyes, we can see why he oftentimes got angry with the children of Israel and the things that they were doing. Now, Aaron loves peace and has a supportive and loyal character, but is also prone to succumbing to pressure from the people. Now, for that first example again, being Moses and Aaron, and the importance of people being together and the importance of doing things together, we have to understand as well that also within the book of Exodus, Moses told the Lord that the burden of the people was too much for him to bear. And Moses was told to grab 70 elders of the people that would also help him to judge the matters. And we have to understand, if 600,000 men were named by number, we can only imagine the women and the children and the amount of counsels that Moses was dealing with alone. So you can only imagine how much of his time had to be given over to the children of Israel and how burdensome it was because he was doing it alone. Not that the job was burdensome, but doing it alone is what's burdensome. And that's what taxes you as your own human being. You have no time for yourself. You have to give energy to everything and everyone else. And then you're left with none yourself to want to do anything for yourself. And more importantly, you're dealing with what seems like an endless amount of problems that you alone have to bear and nobody else. So this is what Moses was going through, and this is what Moses felt. He felt alone. And through his his groanings and his complaint, the Most High heard him out, and he granted him those 70 elders. So this is important for us to understand, so that we're able to see a pattern of how things work out and how the Lord fulfills and delivers on his end. All right. Second case and example. Kamaquash 70 Chiefs. Think about it. Those are some powerful men, because if you think about it, 70 for 600,000 men and women and children not numbered. Yeah, that's a small number compared to the amount of children of Israel that those men had to counsel. And you can only imagine, we know about what's written within the book with all the groaning and complaining we were doing. So what's unaccounted for and what's not written, we also need to take in mind. Next example. All of you know this one. My favorite one. David and Jonathan. There's a lot I could say. All of you remember the 1 Samuel series that we went through. Something else I gotta get back to, but it was a well established series that we went through and all the testing we did with 1 Samuel, man. Jonathan and David. Jonathan and David were not blood brothers. Jonathan's a Benjamite, the son of Saul, the first king over Israel. The people groaned and complained that they wanted a king. Saul was never truthfully meant to be king. He was anointed as a captain just to deliver the children of Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. And through his disobedience to the Most High, ended up losing his spot for the kingdom. Yes, sir, Yashar, indeed. Indeed. So we've read through everything, kind of just mentally get a euphoria, thinking back to all the reading we've done, the testing we've done, the reviews and everything else. This is my favorite example only because we went through the series. Do all of you, let's see. Matter of fact, let me do it now. Let's see. Do all of you remember when Jonathan first became close to David? See if you guys remember that. Do all of you remember when Jonathan first became close to David? Let me give it a second. Let's see. It's been a long while. Conganon. Absolutely, Kawan. 1 Samuel 17, who remembers? Right after David slew Goliath, took his head, they asked him about whose child he was. The son of Jesse, the Bethlehemite. All right. Come on, we know you was 80s baby for the testing, so Ganan the only one. Say Ganan. Kawan's the only one that remembers all the testing we were doing. Another reason why Jonathan and David were close was because David was the son-in-law to Saul, because Saul, after making David sacrifice and risk his life to go take 200 heads of the Philistines, gave David his daughter Michal. So another reason why they were close is literally because they were brother but in-laws. So Jonathan and David were both brothers by David's marriage to Saul's daughter Michal in 1 Samuel chapter 18 and verse 18. Jonathan, being older, looked on David as a younger brother. As David was but ruddy, he was a youth. Jonathan was righteous, looking out for David and protecting him from his father, Saul's wrath. They became close after Goliath was beheaded and slain by David, but the death of Jonathan separated them. When Saul was told by Samuel he and his sons would join him on the other side after the war and the battle, after the final battle with the Philistines. Does anybody remember, despite Jonathan looking out for David and despite his righteous display of character, does anybody remember why Jonathan died and his death was also pronounced by Saul, even though he looked out for David? Okay. Does anybody remember why Jonathan was going to be pronounced dead along with Saul, despite his display of righteous character towards David? Khan Yashar, excellent answer. Anybody else? You guys got to put your thinking caps on. Sins of the father is an excellent answer, but there's also another one. There you go, Zai got it. No lineage could be left from Saul in order for David to be inherited in the king's seat. That's why. If Jonathan remained alive and Saul was the only one that was killed, it would have created civil war and civil dissension amongst the Israelite nation, as if we're not already split at the time, because David branched off from living amongst the Israelite nation and having to flee into the land of the Philistines. So that is why Jonathan also died with Saul. And the 3 covenants that they made together, and one of them, the second one, after David had fled on the new moon and wasn't present with Saul at the dinner table at the feast, Jonathan made David promise him that he would keep his lineage alive and he wouldn't slay any of his descendants. So that's how important their relationship was. And that is how important it is that we understand and realize the power of brotherhood. Because without Jonathan, there would be no King David. If Jonathan didn't go out of his way to encourage and keep David strong, despite his persecution, we don't know where we'd be today pertaining to David. He was given grace and mercy because Jonathan, Yachanan, means God's grace, God's favor. That's why David had someone like Jonathan that cared about him actually fulfilling and acting out what his name meant. So he was literally in God's grace and favor having a man like Jonathan in his life. So that's how powerful their relationship was. But David even testifying and saying that the love of a woman could not surpass the love that Jonathan had for him, to the point where he betrayed and went against his own father to keep his own brother-in-law alive. And it did suck because Jonathan did tell David, when you become king, I'll be right next to you. Would have been nice to see it actually fulfilled out or happen, but it didn't. All right. Now the dynamics of Jonathan and David. Jonathan, he made a covenant of friendship with David. He gave him his own robe, tunic, sword, bow, and belt. He warned David of Saul's intent to kill him and interceded with Saul on David's behalf. He threw a spear at David in anger after he defended David. He met David in the field to signal him to flee. He knew David would be king over Israel. David was a musician and a warrior. He was loved by Jonathan as his own soul. He made a covenant of friendship with Jonathan 3 times. He was warned of the danger by Jonathan. He was shown compassion and loyalty by him. It was promised that Jonathan would be loyal to his family after he became king. Now, again, the beauty in their relationship and their story is that they went out of their way for each other. Again, which adds to the title of the lesson, the importance and the significance of brotherhood and why it's essential. Because without each other, how would this have all gotten done, accomplished, and completed if David never had Jonathan in his life to begin with? Where would Moses have been if he didn't have a brother like Aaron to be his spokesman and orator against Pharaoh and for the people of Israel. Again, this is why I'm going into this, to emphasize this, because we are in need of each other, and this is why God does not like that we do things alone. There's been men that have done things solo. There have been men that we read about within the scriptures that have had to do their own journeys, but eventually they've been around other Israelites. Elijah is a perfect example. Paul is a perfect example. There's many examples within the scriptures. Joseph is a perfect example. At times of solitude and being alone, we all need it, but it comes a time again when you have to be around those who you're supposed to be around. All right. Another example of two people going hand to hand. Nehemiah and Ezra. Who knows what time period Nehemiah and Ezra are operating and commissioned in? Again, who knows what time frame and what time period Nehemiah and Ezra are operating in? And I said, eventually you will need another brother or sister. Absolutely. No questions on that. Excuse me. The importance of doing things together rather than alone. Khan Kawan said, after Babylonian captivity, does anybody remember which specific beast or part of the body that they are living in inside their lives? Who remembers the breakdown? Shah got the answer, the Persian period. The Persian period. From Cyrus the Great all the way up until Darius III, defeated by Alexander. All right. Now, what some of you may not know, Nehemiah and Ezra were both one book, but were separated because they're two different individuals, though they are contemporary with one another. Khan Kawan, mid to late 5th century BCE, Khan. And what we have to understand is that contemporary means alive at the same time, well aware and or known of each other. Except with these two, they were actually working together. So within the Persian period, Nehemiah and Ezra are both contemporaries. Ezra is the priest and the lawgiver. He is the spiritual leader over the people at this time. The Jews returning to the homeland to rebuild the temple again. Nehemiah is Nehemiah is eventually able to be recalled back to Jerusalem and be an aid and guide over the Jews, because he is eventually to be called what's known in the scriptures as the Tershatha, or governor, which is Persian. Now, both men are important at this time in the story because they are rebuilding the temple. It is the return of the exiles, and the people are spiritually getting themselves enlightened and righteous and having to establish order to go about doing so, being spearheaded by Ezra and Nehemiah. And it wasn't easy, as we can read about within the stories, because we were not all the way 100% correct and not wanting to be returning back to our homeland. Now, I've noted this because this is very important. Ezra was a priest, a descendant of Aaron, was a Levite. Nehemiah was a governor, which you could say is a lowercase version of a king. Zechariah 12:5 mentions the governors of Judah. The reason why Nehemiah was a governor or a leader over the people was because he was a Judite. So you can kind of see how king and priest operated over the people, getting them right and fashioning themselves to be righteous before the Most High. You have Ezra, who stood on the pulpit to read out the law to the people on the Day of Trumpets, telling the people not to mourn. Today is a holy day. You're supposed to be commemorating and celebrating. Then you have Nehemiah that was supposed to return home as well with Ezra, or excuse me, in the reign of Artaxerxes I, that was to return home and build the walls up of Jerusalem that were burned down to the ground by Nebuchadnezzar in the destruction of the Jerusalem temple in 586 BC. So what's important is that they both functioned as king and priest, or excuse me, high priest within their roles. Ezra being the priest, Nehemiah would be the king, though not necessarily a descendant of David, but one that is the head and or leader over the people. So basically, governor and priest leading the people, getting them right before the Most High. And this is important because in the time of captivity, we needed leadership because we were going in all the wrong directions. Now, Ezra was a priest and scribe. His main task was religious and social reform, teaching the Torah and reestablishing covenant obligations. He was to restore the community's spiritual life and set it apart through adherence to God's law. He led the second return to Jerusalem in 458 BC during the reign of Artaxerxes the king. He worked alongside Nehemiah during the public reading of the law, and he had an edict from King Artaxerxes to legislate the Torah. Nehemiah, he was the cupbearer to the Persian king. He was responsible primarily for physically rebuilding Jerusalem's walls. He was desiring to protect the city from outside inhabitants. He led the third return in Jerusalem in 444 BCE during the reign of King Artaxerxes. He worked alongside Ezra, again during the public reading of the law. And his personal relationship with the king allowed him to gain permission and access to certain resources that nobody else had. So now in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 8 and verse 9, it says in Nehemiah, which is the Tershatha, that's the Persian word for governor, and Ezra the priest and scribe and the Levites that taught the people said unto all the people, this day is holy unto the Lord your God, mourn not nor weep. For all the people wept when they heard the words of this law. And again, going up to verse 1, and all the people gathered themselves together as one man into the street that was before the water gate. And they spake unto Ezra the scribe to bring the book of the law of Moses, which the Lord had commanded to Israel. So together they worked side by side to see the leadership of the men that were trying to get the nation of Israel right again, just as we were going and were led astray. So this was important because they worked together and united for a common goal and purpose to fulfill the mission. So in all examples, in all of them, because I'm sure all of you could come up with many more, we all need each other. We are all important to one another. This is why the body is important, because it's not just your head, it's not just your ears, your nose, your lips, your eyes, your arms, your torso, your legs. Everything functions and works as one. And this is why understanding how unison and unity works, you can't do it alone. Someone who is not white, can he be the Hebrew Israelite? No, because Israelites are of blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans descent predominantly and only. Be a Hebrew Edomite. So to continue explaining, these relationships are important and should be important to every single one of you. Because as you open this Bible, you see and read yourselves. So it's essential that you realize and understand, if those men couldn't do it alone, if those men had to be together, if they work together, then we are to do the same in our day and age. You brothers that do flyer missions, but we do camp, you can't ever do it alone. What would you look like being on the mic by yourself and just teaching the people and reading for yourself? If you was out doing, not that you can't, but it's better to do it with somebody. You have a brother to read for you. You have a brother to aid and assist you. You have a brother that has your back. Somebody wants to get crazy, loudmouth, you got to prepare to attack and or defend yourself. You have somebody with you. Anything happens, cops are called, you have someone to speak on your behalf. Imagine if you're alone doing all that. Then what? And it's important to understand that this is why it being more than one is so important. And why the Bible speaks on it so much, because we are nothing without each other. But with each other and side by side, there's nothing that's impossible to do. Absolutely it is. I think it was the General Shamak that had said the main criteria of judgment you're being judged on, personally, with you yourself, brotherhood, you and your congregation, and your rib with you in your marriage. Because the Lord is tied to all three. It's impossible. So it's important to understand that, because without that and that being understood, we're nothing without each other. But everything can be accomplished when you have somebody by your side. And that's why, again, to highlight the difference, there's a difference between being alone and being in solitude. There's a difference. Constantly, as it does get dark alone. It absolutely does. That's why it's not good. Isolation is not good for human health. Like, you guys have seen the movies and the cartoons where the dude is on the island by himself, and someone comes find him. He's all raggedy with the beard. He looks like a caveman. That's what you resort back to when you haven't been around humans in so long. Without human connection, touch, voice communication, what do you think happens? You're deprived of it. And neurologically and chemically within your brain, you also begin to change as well. That's why it's not good to that excessive extreme in degree. For a time period, absolutely. For life in a long period of time, no, it's not. So with that being said, let's get to the scriptures. Ecclesiastes. All right. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 and verse 9 to verse 12. Two people are better. Ecclesiastes 4 and 9, reading down to verse 12 in the NLT. The water, Kwan. It says, two people are better than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one falls, the other can reach out and help. But someone who falls alone is in real trouble, like the sister Yaz said. Likewise, two people lying close together can keep each other warm, but how can one be warm alone? A person standing alone can be attacked and defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. And this emphasizes what I brought out in these examples pertaining to these men I've mentioned. When you're alone is when you're not able to do at 100% capability. It's like being, there's always the example of healthy competition. You've ever lifted with a brother, you've ever worked out with a brother, and the same for sisters. But it's having somebody by you that pushes you as you wouldn't normally do if you were doing it as if you weren't doing it by yourself. It's different because now you have to step out of your comfortable boundaries and the zones you're used to being in and tap into a different zone and mode when you're with somebody else. Like now you're held to be accountable, or now you have to, and I've done this, where you gotta show off a little bit, be a little bit ostentatious, so that way, you know, you gotta walk around with your chest puffed up, you know, let the brother know. I've done it. It's not out of, you know, pride or ego thinking that I'm better, but you know, I gotta put on my best show. I gotta put on my best case, you know. So there's nothing like being with somebody that's able to push you to that degree and extreme. Take for example, Yeshaya. Yeshaya is a firefighter, and we had taken a jog at this reservoir that was, I believe, 4.8 miles. What we jogged was around an entire reservoir surrounded by huge swaths of bodies of water. And I can admit I would have not been able to do that alone if he didn't suggest we go do it together. I stretched, drank my water, and the entire time it was humbling because the pace he was jogging at was a pace that I could keep up to without losing my breath. I can tell all of you right here, right now, the only reason why I did it was because he was there with me. And what I would have done is I would have started off at a faster pace and then slowed down, rather than to have taken my time as I did with him while we were jogging together. And the point of why I bring that out is to say, if it wasn't for me doing it with him, jogging at the reservoir, I wouldn't have been able to push myself compared to if I was by myself. Question. Hamashiach Yahawashi said 2 or more gathered there. I mean, that's one of my precepts. Come. And that's why I'm, you know, giving the story, is because you can't do it alone. You can't do it by yourself. That's why it's important to have somebody by your side. That's why it's important to make sure that you're not doing it alone. And even if that's the case, bring your brother with you. Shama. So I want to emphasize the last portion again. Verse 9, Ecclesiastes 4 and 9 in the NLT. 2 are better than 1, for they can help each other succeed. The ladder to success you have to climb alone. No one said you couldn't get help getting there. Everybody should know this one. Proverbs chapter 17 and verse 17, which is actually literally a fulfillment of what we just gone over with these examples. Proverbs 17 and 17 says, a friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. The closest people to you at times are not of your own blood. They are of people you grow relationships with, whose lives and whose paths you never probably in your life would have crossed. Jonathan was born for David. That is why we still have King David. Aaron was born for Moses. That's why Moses had a spokesman, and we had a spiritual leader being the high priest and Aaron and his sons to offer sacrifice on our behalf, especially on the Day of Atonement. We have Nehemiah and we have Ezra. You have the priest and the governor, both working hand in hand, strengthening up the walls of Jerusalem and guiding and again the people right. We know Nehemiah had to beat on the children of Israel and rebuke them because they were trying to sell on the Sabbath. And we also have, on top of that, Ezra was reading out of the law to the people on the Feast of Trumpets and reminding them that it was a holy day and a holy time to commemorate and read out of the book of the law. During captivity, by the way. So a brother is born for the day of adversity. And it wasn't just Ezra going through it alone. For what the children of Israel were doing, Nehemiah also, of course, had to rebuke the people as well. It wasn't just Ezra; they both went through it, which made them closer because they both understood one another. Question: is it safe to say John was born for Yahawashi. You necessarily could say that Peter, James, and John, the closest disciples to him, were born for him because they were the one that really got to see the behind-the-scene things that the rest of the 12 didn't get to see. I will say it probably definitely is. John is a big exception to that because his gospel is different from the first three, and he was the one that was favored by Christ, and he slept on Yahawashi he laid on Yahawashi's breast, I believe it was, and he was the only one of the 12 disciples that wasn't put to death. He lived to a long age on the island of Patmos. So I will say that that's a valid question, Bukwasha. I'd say con to that. So again, these brothers being born for adversity, we see why the roles that they had that we read about were fulfilled. Elijah was for Elisha, because someone would have to take up the mantle and the role he did after he passed. So we see the roles and we see these things being fulfilled that we read about because, again, we need one another. We cannot do without. And it should explain the importance of, sometimes as a people, I know all of you have had the examples of coming across brothers and sisters that don't like to be around people, that don't like to socialize, that don't like to socialize, that's not a people person. There's a difference between being introverted, but there's also a difference in being a sociable introvert. Again, if you're more solitude-like of a person, that's understandable. But even then, those people have times where you need to be around people and you need to have human connection. Just don't be introverted all the time. Yahawashi himself was an introvert. That's why he went up into the mountains or he escaped off to some private place, usually at times to pray. In the mountain, in the wilderness. Yahawashi was an introvert. But he was a righteous one because even then he came back amongst the people. He needed the time to be in solitude, to be alone, to recharge, to reconnect, and then you see him again. You're going to be an introvert or you're going to be someone that's a solitude, very much minded person. You still need sociable human interaction. Let's see. We'll give more examples with more precepts. In Matthew chapter 9 and verse 36, this is speaking on Yahawashi. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them because they fainted and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. Then saith he unto his disciples, the harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few. Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest that he will send forth laborers into his harvest. Again, we need one another. We need more workers. Why would you ever want to aspire or desire to do the work alone? And if that's where people's minds are at, get on YouTube, start teaching, go to camp and set up a sign, teach on the mic by yourself, open the Bible by yourself and read for yourself. Do everything alone and see how that works for you. Because then when the holy days come, and we read in Deuteronomy that all the males must be present before the Lord 3 times a year, what are you then going to do? When you have to be around people, when you have to give up your sacrifice, we need one another. Undisputably and by law. The good brother Bukwash brought out the precept earlier, Matthew chapter 18 and verse 20. Matthew chapter 18 and verse 20, Yahawashi says, for where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am in the midst of them. And this is to show the importance of why 2 people coming together, 3 or more, building and gathering within the name of Yahawashi, it gives it the power and the spirit that's needed for his spirit to be there. He was one man that had 12 disciples. He broke bread, built, rebuked, but also taught his disciples. He spoke unto them parables. Again, you see the point in that If he wanted more people, he definitely could have had more people, but he only picked 12 men. And that should show you we all need one another in some kind of way. And even when Yahawashi wasn't around the disciples, you can definitely understand and believe, like how Satan tried to tempt him in Matthew chapter 4, the angels came and ministered unto him. So even if he's not alone and around humans or the disciples, he was being ministered unto by the angels. So, here's a good one. Luke chapter 10. Luke chapter 10 and verse 1. After these things, the Lord appointed over 70 also, and sent them 2 and 2 before his face into every city and place, whither he himself would come. What does this mean? That he never sent anyone out alone. Because if he did, you can imagine if Yahawashi was being questioned, persecuted, and everything else, so on and so forth. Imagine how much more worse it would have been if he sent out the people preaching in his name while he's on the scene to be doing that alone. It's a dangerous game, and you can see how Yahawashi used discretion, sending out 35 pairs of men out together to go bid them to do the work. And that should actually show you that that same example and motto that they were doing then is what we're doing now, because we don't ever do things on a one-on-one basis. At the very least, it's 2 men together doing the work, doing what we're commissioned to do, but it's never one person doing it alone. All right. Now to go to what I had taught some time ago in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. You should know this chapter particularly that Paul speaks about with the body. 1 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 14 says, for the body is not one member, but many. And if all of you just take a second and really think about it, you have eyeballs, you have phalanges, which is the ending of your fingers and your toes. And it's beautiful to see, you know, if you guys think back, if you guys had a biology class or any kind of, you know, those kinds of classes, you always see the skeleton, and it's like, if you really take a second to think about it, you can see how everything is perfectly and in tune connected. From your skull all the way down to your toes. And how your bones, your rib cage, they protect your flesh and protect your organs, and your organs, or excuse me, your tendons and your muscles wrap perfectly around your skeleton. And then through the act of sexual intercourse, you bring forth life. You know, from looking at the baby up until the baby grows and you see how everything beautifully unfolds within life, you can see how the Lord, from the very beginning of creation, and just how I believe it's known that, of course, babies have more bones and they have softer muscle tissue, but they do so because they are careful beings that you have to take care of. And it's beautiful how I believe it's over 300 bones, if I'm not mistaken, that then become 206 as you get older, that form and connect together. But the baby has so much more because you have to be careful with the baby. You have to be tender. You have to be cautious. Like, it's beautiful how all of that works. So you can see how the Lord purposely designed and put everything together with the very beginning of human life. And as you grow, you then become stronger. Your bones become more denser. You begin to gain and get muscle, so on and so forth. So to understand that and to see that from the Lord's creation, you can see within the Bible itself about how the Lord created, made, and manifested everything. Moses and Aaron, they're part of one body. Jonathan and David, are 2 brothers-in-laws, where Jonathan was protecting his younger brother, which is righteous of him. And then you can see Nehemiah and you can see Ezra working together as contemporaries to get the people back right again, leading the people back into the land and showing them what they need to do now that we are allowed to come back into the land and build the temple. It is symmetrical, and that's a human anatomy classes con. So if we understand this in the different parts of the body that we have, again, there's many examples that we have when it comes to how all of this operates and works that we read about in the scriptures. And again, the many examples that there are pertaining to all the men that we can read about. One cannot be without the other because we both need one another to and for each other. And if that's not the case, from the very beginning of time, the Lord wouldn't had seen it be fit that Adam needed a helpmate and Eve would have never been created. The simple math, 1 + 1, equals 2. It's very foundational because without it, all of you can think to yourselves, where would you be? In our lives, there's always been one person to assist and guide us, no matter how dark it's felt like it's been or how troublesome it may have seemed to be. And when you think about it, you end up becoming probably tearful because you're meditating on gratitude from where you were versus where you're at now. Whether that be man and woman in relation to marriage, whether that be brother to brother, younger or older, or simply counsel, and there's many more examples. But this here with the examples I gave tonight are the ones that stuck out most to me that I wanted to share with everyone because they are foundational as to what we read to in the scriptures. Moses and Aaron, Moses, the leader of the Exodus, the prophetic lawgiver, Aaron, the first high priest and the religious leader over the people. And you also have Jonathan and David. Again, without Jonathan, there would be no David. Where would we be if Jonathan didn't exist? And then you also have Nehemiah and Ezra, again, working within the Persian period because we needed them. Absolutely, Ganon. The key word is help. That the Hebrew word there for help is Izar. Izar. Ezra's name, Izarah, means help, to succor. That's literally what Ezra's name means. And then you also have Nehemiah, which is Nechemia, which means God's rest. God consoles. God consoled the people because he gave them a man and a leader that was to help them get themselves right again before the Most High. It's funny you put that. Moses he drew the children of Israel out of Egypt. He split the Red Sea and drew out Pharaoh's army that drowned in it. You have Aaron, light bearer. You have the Urim and the Thummim that bears light, that will see into the future about what's to come pertaining to the children of Israel. Jonathan, Yachanan, which means God's grace. David, Dawad, beloved. And then you have the last two that I just gave. So the importance and the significance of that is, again, the title of the lesson, the essentiality of brotherhood. You can't do without it. And, shout out to Ganon because, in the messages that the brother sends, he always puts brotherhood is a weapon. Well, it is a weapon. And that's the point of tonight's lesson. Because without it and without, another brother to help you up or to help you sharpen your sword to help you get, smarter, make better and wiser decisions, or to simply help you lift you off your feet, where would we be? And in posing those questions, it should help every single one of you understand why human life and connection is necessary and important. These are really things that we have to think on because these are the pertinent things that pertain to our lives and will dictate and determine where we go. And will help to influence the decisions that we make. All right. That being said, any questions, comments, concerns anyone wants to add before we close on out with the lesson? Comments? Absolutely, Ganon. Everyone, remember that brotherhood is a weapon. Now, if you ever want to take the time to read about David's mighty men, you will see what the physical manifestation of that is. Brotherhood is a weapon. Absolutely, Bakwash. Where would we be? And it's important to understand that because we don't know where we would be without brothers. That's the point of why we need one another. You know, if you just meditate and take the time in solitude when you have the time, gratitude will elevate you spiritually and mentally to places you probably think you'd never be at. And I can for sure tell you that when you meditate and think on the things you're thankful and grateful for, it'll help you see things from an entirely different light of perspective that you probably think you wouldn't have. Absolutely, sister. Yes, absolutely. So again, we need one another. We need each other. And this is the significance and importance of unity and togetherness. All right. If there are no more questions, comments, or concerns, we're about to close out class. That being said, Amadyam Apanyam Akwadam. This is Psalm chapter 133. Behold, how good, how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard, that went down to the skirts of his garments, as the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forevermore. In the name of Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi, the Wadatham Yad, Aman.
Amani Barak. Amani Shabbat. Barak. Yahweh Hashem Yahshua Barakatam.
Yahweh Hashem Yahshua Barakatam.